looking for ICT resources to enhance your primary RE lessons? Well, you might want to consider the three that we're evaluating today on a Resource Review ICT Special. They are a CD-ROM that looks at Judaism, a website that explores religion and life through the eyes of children, and another website that explores religious rites and rituals. Recommending today's resources, we have Laurie Rosenberg, head teacher at Simon Marks Jewish Primary School in London. On the panel today, teacher Peter Greaves from Dublin's Primary School in Leicester, and freelance education consultant Adrienne Jones. Over in the test lab, our resident ICT investigator Matthew Tosh will be putting the resources through their paces. So, Laurie, your first choice of resource for us today is the CD-ROM on Judaism and synagogues, part of the Places of Worship series. Tell us about this resource.
Well, this CD-ROM, I think, sums up the main parts of the synagogue, which is the centre of Jewish worship, as you know. And not only does it go into the synagogue, but it looks at worship, the people involved in the synagogue, the items used in worship, and so on and so forth. But also, what I liked about it, it can be used independently, can be used in groups, and I think it's an excellent resource, especially for children in areas where there may not be a synagogue. Now, my own school, I've been looking at the other CDs in the series on a mosque and a temple and so on and so forth, and a church. So that's why I'm really recommending this resource.
OK, well, thank you very much. Now let's go over to see how Matthew got on with this particular CD-ROM.
The Places of Worship series covers all the major faiths and includes various tours and interactive quizzes. I'm going to be looking at the Judaism CD-ROM in this programme. The resource has interactive tours with lots of pictures and sounds to guide you through, and we can visit the synagogue to get an idea of this. Now, inside you'll see there's a diagram of a synagogue.
The pulpit. The ark.
Now, if we click on one of those objects, we're taken to a short presentation.
Rabbi's seat.
Now, once you've read the screen, you can click on the arrow down here. It will take you to a couple of quiz questions. So we'll just type in the answers.
Well done.
I do want to show you the quizzes and games though. Now, of particular interest is the quiz, number one. I found that it was really good because you get different rounds, and every so often you get a bonus round and you have to do things like catch a plague of locusts, raining frogs, or defend a synagogue from the Romans. I'm going to have a look at the labelling exercise though. OK, so we've got our keywords here, and all we need to do is drag them into the picture. And the good thing about this, it won't let you drag them into the wrong place. So I can't drag the rabbi's seat there, but I can drag it up to here, which is the correct place. And finally, I'm going to show you the Teacher's Notes section. In the Teacher's Notes section, there are lots of explanations about the different sections of the CD-ROM. If I just show you here, you can see some of the objectives in the People of the Synagogue task, and there are also some suggested activities. One final point is that the resource is what I call a fixed resolution, which means if you're viewing it on a high resolution screen, the picture actually gets smaller and smaller. So the best resolution to use is 800 by 600 pixels, which is standard for most interactive whiteboards. And that concludes my tour of this resource. Back to Hermione.
Laurie, how accessible do you think this resource is to the non-specialist teacher who's introducing their class to Judaism?
Yeah, well, that's precisely who I had in mind. When I was going through this myself, I thought, well, how would someone who is new to Judaism, new to the concept of a synagogue, actually find their way around? I thought the non-specialist could actually be quite happy with it.
OK, well, Peter, you're a generalist primary teacher. How did you find this resource?
I thought it was excellent, and so did the children as soon as they got onto it. I thought it represented what a synagogue would be like, and the pupils found their way around it very simply.
Fantastic. Well, Adrienne, what were your thoughts?
I thought as a CD-ROM that offered information, it did the business. I did have some issues in its design. The voice on it was really severe. I was terrified. I went onto the quiz and purposely got a couple of things wrong, and it was like, no, 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 go back and do that again. Oh, yes. And I just wondered how children would feel in that scenario, because it wasn't a kind of encouraging, well, that's not quite right, okay, maybe you'd like to have another go.
Peter, did your children try out the quizzes?
They did, and also after every section, if, for example, if we look at the items used in worship, you get some text, and some pictures, which is quite challenging text. If we look at the Teflon, for example, there are some quite challenging long sentences in there that is saved by the fact that it's read out. So as long as they've got headphones on or there's not too many going on at once, you're okay. And then when you've read it, you get quiz questions to answer there. Now, what I did find is sometimes the pupils were more keen to get the questions right than remember what they'd learned.
All right. Well, I'm afraid we've got to move on to Laurie's second choice of resource now. Laurie, this is a free website. It's called BritKids. What is it?
It's a group of young people, each of whom represents a different faith group or a different cultural group, living together in this phantom town, Brichester. And you can go to where they hang out, you can understand where they come from, you can understand their background, their religion, and so on and so forth. You can even go to their places of worship. And for each, I spent hours on here, all right? And the children themselves gain so much from it. They understand each other's cultural similarities, not the differences, it's the similarities. And children working together, I just saw this, you know, my kids, year 6 kids who are in our interactive area, they just got lost in it.
Okay.
And they wanted to be part of the gang.
Well, you're clearly a fan, but let's go over to Matthew now in the test lab for a bit more of a tour of BritKids.
Racism, religious stereotyping and life, they're all dealt with here on the BritKid website. It follows 9 characters, all from different ethnic and religious backgrounds, around the fictitious town of Brichester. So let's have a little look. Now here we can see a map of all the different places we can visit, but because it's an RE programme, I'm just going to focus on the places of worship. So we'll have a look at the mosque. When I've clicked on that, we get a mini menu, and I can go inside the mosque and get some information about it. Now there's quite a bit of text here, but it's supported by images. It doesn't look like that from the outset, but wherever there's some white writing, you click on it, it's a link to a picture. So there's plenty of pictures here for you to have a look at. Now the design of the site is quite simple. There's no backlink, so you have to use the back button on your browser to go back to wherever you come from. We can have a look at the classroom. Here we can see 3 characters, and all of these are links. We can click on one of them and see an example conversation. Now the language used in the conversation is easy to follow, it's really accessible and relevant as well. After the conversations on the site, you can click on the next button and it takes you to a little question following on from the conversation. So I'll click on, we got it right. At the very bottom there's a serious issues link, and if you click on this it gives you some of the serious content of the website, and of particular note is this one at the top, which charts the languages used in some of the main religions across the UK. Particularly it lists the differences between spoken, written and religious languages. There's a teacher's guide, and there are also some lesson plans and worksheets that you can use in your classes. So overall, this is a really easy site to navigate through, and there are no pop-ups to contend with. Back to Hermione.
Well, Laurie, I can see how BritKid would appeal to pupils, but I felt looking around it, and from what Matthew showed us, some things weren't really explained that well. Do you think there are limits to what you can do with this site?
You have to be mindful of this. It's a free website, so some of its limitations are perhaps the lack of hyperlinks, but they themselves, the children who are inquisitive enough will use other methods. It will actually stimulate their curiosity, hopefully, and lead them on to other things.
Great, OK. Well, Peter, first of all, focusing on RE, what did you think of this resource?
Well, RE really begins to come to life and have an impact when it's got to do with people. And I thought this brought that out beautifully, that the religion is there and significant in their lives, but they're people first and foremost. And I would imagine particularly in schools where pupils might not have met other pupils of different religions, and so they might only have stereotypes and images to think of. Here are some people they can get to know.
And how did you use it with your pupils?
Well, firstly, I said, here's some people you to get to know. And they did, and they did, I think, what we all did when we first found it, and they clicked around, and I found one of them writing down the web address so they could try it at home.
Oh, fantastic.
But beyond that, I wanted them to try and find out what impact the beliefs were actually having on their lifestyles, which it does bring out. except for one. And the only limitation I found of it was that there is no proud Christian kid as part of this group. The two that have, for example, I got Megan here, where the symbol there is her religion as Christianity. But if you look at the top, it says, there's not a lot I can say about this. I sort of believe in things like my gran does, but I couldn't say I believe in it really strongly. Right. Whereas every other religion has a gang member who is proud to be a part of their religion. And that's a real shame.
Adrienne, what were your thoughts?
I was thinking how different it would be if it was in text form as a book. You know, I doubt whether the interest in this would be quite so strong. What I liked about it was its inclusivity, and that when children are looking at this, they get this sense of belonging. I think that is really important, you know, that sense of peopleness.
OK, well, thank you all very much. Now let's move on to Laurie's third choice of resource. It's another free website, this time called Rites of Passage. Laurie, explain this one to us.
It deals with rites of passage from birth, adolescence, marriage and death through the different faiths. So, for example, I'll just pop into adolescence here, then look at Judaism, which I know most about, obviously, and there's a young 13-year-old lad preparing for his bar mitzvah. A lot of text, but I don't, you know, I'm not apologetic for that because there's a lot of information in here, and then you can obviously go back to look at another faith, for example, Christianity, what happens there, and so forth. So for young children, for children trying to look at what happens at different important milestones in life and relating it to a faith base, I thought this provided a lot of content, but also a lot of interest as well.
Well, focusing on RE for now, Peter, what did you think of this resource?
I certainly think if you're about to start a topic which was thematic and was looking at birth ceremonies or death ceremonies or rites of passage, then it would be a great starting place for the generalist. I think it probably would not be a good finishing place for the generalist. I think there are certain aspects of it that are quite limited. For example, I've got a Christian kiddie in my class that went on and was disappointed to find nothing about dedication, because that was their birth ceremony, and the Catholic Church don't get a mention as part of baptism. So the information it provides is good, but as a starting point rather than a finishing point.
I hear what you're saying, but I think there's enough in here, especially for teaching from an agreed syllabus perspective, to actually provide enough material for the children to work interdependently, and for a generalist to pick out enough of it to actually introduce a topic.
Adrienne, what were your thoughts?
Quick comment. I have a concern about children reading so much text from a screen, you know, but I think it's a lot to ask children to be put in front of a screen and just reading all the time.
I would like to see primary pupils using this as a basis for further research. I'd like them to use this as a research tool. All
right. Well, thank you all very much. I'm afraid that's all we've got time for today. But to recap, the three resources that we looked at were Places of Worship Judaism from Birchfield Interactive plc, the Brick Kids website from Chichester University, and the Rites of Passage website from the Religious Education Exchange Services. For more information about the resources we've discussed, go to our website. It's teachers.tv/resource review, or if you want to email us, resourcereview@teachers.tv. I'd like to say a very big thank you to our panel, to Laurie, to Peter and to Adrienne. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time on Resource Review. Bye-bye.